final at age 19 and made his Test debut for Australia at age 20. What an incredible achievement. What an honour for him and his family it must have been to see him awarded a baggy green number 408. Phil Hughes was a tremendous Australian who inspired so many young people in this country, not only through his outstanding ability, but his down-to-earth and humble character. He was remembered by all who knew him as a genuine good bloke. The effect Phil's tragic death has had on the cricket community, as well as the broader community in Australia and around the world, shows us the impact this young Australian had already made. The touching tributes that have been flowing in from our Australian cricket captain Michael Clarke, from the New Zealand and Pakistani cricket teams who have been playing this week, from junior cricketers and from the far wider community, just shows how much this tragedy has not only rocked the sport, but it has impacted on us all. It is fitting that the Australian cricket team has retired his one-day number 64, so we can always acknowledge his special place in Australian cricket. Today is a sad day, but also a day to celebrate Phil Hughes' outstanding contribution. Our thoughts are with his family and friends.
Thank you, Senator Scullion. Senator Lambie.
Mr President, I ask leave to move a motion relating to the conduct of business of the Senate, namely a motion to give precedence to general business order. Sorry.
Is leave granted, Senator? Is leave granted? Well, I'd assume no one else sought leave to. No. So we're now back into regular. Unless I've missed anyone else who wanted to seek leave to make a statement. No. No. So, Senator Lambie, you have the call.
You do that.
Senator Xenophon.
Understanding was that there would be a minute's silence in memory of Philip Hughes. Is that the case?
It's not been my understanding, but I'm in the hands of the Senate. It's not my understanding, though. Senator Wong.
Mr President, I'm sorry, I may be a genuine misunderstanding, but I did understand that there would be a minute's silence, and if that is the will of the Senate, the opposition obviously has no objection.
Well, Senator Faulkner.
Suggestion, Mr President, that you invite senators to stand in their places to honour the life of Philip Hughes.
Is that the will of the Senate? I'd invite senators to stand in silence in respect of the memory of Philip Hughes. I thank honourable senators. Senator Lambie.
Mr President, I ask leave to move a motion relating to the conduct of the business of the Senate, namely a motion to give precedence to General Business Order of Day number 52 for private senators' bills relating to the Defence Force Amendment, Fair Pay for Members of the Australian Defence Force Bill 2014. Is
leave granted? Leave is not granted, Senator Lambie.
Mr President, pursuant to contingent notice, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as will prevent me moving a motion relating to the conduct of business of the Senate, namely a motion to give precedence to General Business Order of the Day number 52 for private senators' bills relating to the Defence Force Amendment, Fair Pay and Members of the Australian Defence Force Bill 2014.
The question is that motion be Senator Abetz.
Mr President, the government does not support the suspension of standing orders. We are now in the last 2 days of the parliamentary sitting. There is an orderly agenda before us, and I simply put to senators that if we are going to have yet again another hijacking of the agenda in the last week, and we achieve that by getting various coalitions of convenience across the chamber to achieve those sort of outcomes, then I think we are doing ourselves a disservice in the management of not only this place but the agenda and the matters that the Australian people wishes to deal with. Can I also say, Mr President, that let us not fabricate any difference in this place about who cares for the welfare of the Australian Defence Force. We all do. We all do. As a Cabinet Minister, I live with that responsibility every day, as does the Prime Minister, as does the Minister for Defence, and I trust we all do. The reality is, in relation to defence pay, that Australia is burdened with a monthly interest bill of $1,000 million a month, and that is being borrowed simply to pay the interest on the debt that has already been sustained. Now, all spending has to be sustainable, even defence spending. It's just not feasible to borrow even more money to pay for higher wages. The government needs to find an additional $16,000 million just to replace that which Labor stripped out of defence during their 6 years in government. Mr President, in answer to a question earlier this week, I indicated what the CPI increases were and what the actual wage increases were for the public service. And over the last decade, there was a differential of 14%. The wage increases being 42%, CPI 48%. In relation to the ADF, just on wages, the differential is 38%, some 10%, and that doesn't take into account the, in general terms, quite generous allowances that do come with Defence Force service. Can I also say to honourable senators that might be attracted to this proposition that the Remuneration Tribunal itself has said that it has a long-held view that setting remuneration for one office by reference to another office does not lead to defensible or meaningful wage outcomes. And if we want to start setting wages in this place, we can get rid of the Fair Work Commission, get rid of the Remuneration Tribunal, get rid of the Defence Force Remuneration Tribunal.
Order on my left. Order.
And you know, we get a churlish, silly interjection, as we always expect from Senator Cameron, but does he actually want the Parliament to set wages? That's the issue. And now he falls silent. Of course he doesn't want to. And if we don't want the Parliament to set wages, then we don't come rushing in here with populist agendas to try to get wage increases. It's interesting that in this bill, Mr President, we don't have the reverse, that parliamentary salaries should, as a matter of fact, be linked to CPI. The financial situation in this country, regrettably, is that I was duty-bound on behalf of the government to go to the Remuneration Tribunal and say that for parliamentarians, secretaries, the Chief of Defence Force, the Minister for Defence, all have had any wage increases that were to come to them frozen and for this coming year set at zero. Why do we do that? Because the money simply isn't there. When we seek to make more generous payments to anyone in Australia, that money first has to come out of the pockets of one of our fellow Australians. So, in summary, Mr President, there is an agenda that needs to be dealt with here. Two, we do not want the Parliament setting people's wages when there are remuneration tribunals and other tribunals are designed to do that, and I would invite senators to oppose the motion.
Your contribution has expired.